So talking about the pass catchers, you lose 3 of your top 4 guys from a year ago. Obviously, the big loss, Kevin Coleman Jr. Last year, 74 catches for 932 yards, 6 touchdowns, all of which led MSU's receivers. There was no one else who was even close in terms of receptions, yards, touchdowns. He was State's go-to guy. And, what made Craver so special in this room last year, as I've talked about, is he kind of did a little bit of everything from a receiver standpoint. We talk about guys who are dangerous in space, like, hey, get them the ball on a screen on a jet sweep and they can turn it into a big play, or throw a quick hitch to them and they can catch and run, turn it into a big play. We talk about guys who are good possession receivers, like, hey, throw it to him over the middle of the field and he's going to find a way to find the open space, get open. He's going to catch the ball. He's going to get you a first down. It can be that consistent chain mover. And then we talk about guys who are the explosive, shot plays down the field, like, hey, one-on-one, he is going to burn the defender around him and he's going to win deep.
Yeah.
Kevin Coleman did all 3 of those things. Kevin Coleman, I don't know if I've seen an MSU receiver in my time following the program that genuinely could do all 3, where he's great in space and with the quick, easy throws and turning them into big plays. He is great at just getting open and being that possession target and being that safety valve for the quarterback. He's also – they didn't use him as much in the vertical game because that's more what they did with the outside receivers. But when they wanted to, they took shots to Kevin Coleman, and he hit big plays down the field. He was huge for State a year ago. And I think there was optimism he was going to have a good year. I don't think anybody thought it was going to be the season that he had. Yeah, really a lot of that excitement was around Kelly Akari, who, got injured early in the year, probably dampened him. But by the end of the season, he was playing pretty well for MSU on the outside. But losing Coleman is a massive blow. And my question for the receiver room is, did you replace Kevin Coleman? And is that even fair to ask? Now, what everyone will point to is that Kevin Coleman did not have the season that he had at MSU at any point prior in his career. He tripled his production from what he did at Louisville in 2023 to what he did at Mississippi State in 2024. It was a huge jump in production. And Jeff Lebby's track record is that everywhere he has been, he's had a receiver who puts up those big numbers. Often it's the slot guy. Not every year, but mostly it's been the slot guy for him outside of basically when he was at UCF. And at Oklahoma, Marvin Mims kind of played both slot and outside. He did both. So it's kind of like, okay, well, odds say somebody's going to do it. Odds say one of these receivers are going to do it. But we kind of don't know. And look, he's not the only loss. Kelly Akari was a good player for State. 391 yards, 25 catches, 2 touchdowns. Mario Craver, from a talent standpoint, in 9 games, 17 catches for 368 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, there's reasons beyond production on the field that are why Craver is no longer at Mississippi State. Some of that is, he had NIL demands, but State was not willing to meet those NIL demands because of some of their concerns with him. And I'm not going to get into all that today. Basically what I'm getting at is I don't think State misses him, but he was an incredibly talented player. And assuming that he keeps his head on straight, I think he's going to have a big year at Texas A&M. He's a talented player who was a really good fit within the system. Significant losses. So you turn it over to a portal class where, man, you brought in a whole bunch of guys. When you talk about Brent Thompson comes over from Oklahoma, Anthony Evans coming from Georgia, Aiden Williams from Ole Miss, Marcus Allen from Eastern Michigan, Cam Thompson from Northern Illinois, Jerron Glover from Michigan State. I mean, that's 6 transfer receivers right there. And they may or may not have had another. They brought in a lot of guys. And the theme with all these guys is potential over production. Every single one of these guys, you can see how they can fit into the system. And, okay, that guy is dangerous in space. That guy is a dangerous player down the field. We can work with that guy. We can have success fitting him into the system. None of them have done it. None of them have that type of production at their previous stops. How much of that is a reflection on them as a player versus the system that they were in? How much of that is we're going to be able to get Jeff Lebby is just going to be able to take those guys and put them in a position to succeed. We got a comment from Pharrell, Lebby Nader Jr., time being expressed. I've wasted too many hours rewatching games from by the way, I love that name. Wasted
Lebby
too many
Nader.
hours off season rewatching games from last season and seeing MVB either rush to finish a play or just completely miss a receiver. How much better will Blake be? I think Blake will be better. I think the biggest place you will see Blake be more successful is in the short to intermediate passing game. I'll say this for MVB. For a true freshman, I thought his pocket presence was very good.
Right.
He did not have the immediate – a lot of true freshmen, it's like one read, and if it ain't there, I'm getting out of the pocket, trying to get to the edge, and maybe I'll keep my eyes downfield, but I'm probably trying to take off. He did a good job of stepping up into the pocket, and still you could see him working 1 to 2 to 3 across the field for his progression. A lot of freshmen don't do that, that's one of the things I looked at when I watched him. It's like, okay, this kid could be something. That said, I definitely get the point of, like, he was not comfortable working the quick throws at all. You could just kind of see that. His footwork was not there. The throwing motion looked really to the point of like rushing to finish a play, kind of sped up. And he was just kind of inaccurate on those throws. I think deep balls, when he was comfortable, he was pretty settled in. I think Shapen opens up more, like all 3 levels of the passing game. Shapen allows you to do that more consistently. Now, I will say Shapen, like, if there's a flaw in his game, it's sometimes he tries to create when he doesn't need to. There is some pocket stuff with him that's not the best. But I think in terms of being able to operate a full-scale passing game, you can do more with Shapen because of that. But he's also got to have the receivers to do it. You've got to have receivers who can handle those roles. So getting back into talking about those receivers, again, the potential is there. It's whether or not the production can be there for these guys. Can Jeff Levy get the most out of this room? And I think you have guys who could be successful. I talked about a couple episodes ago when we looked at talked about media days and Anthony Evans and how Blake Shapen called him out as like, hey, that's a guy I think is going to be a huge part of what we do offensively this coming season. And we just got a highlight out of practice of him hitting Evans deep down the field. That's a guy that if he can do that, that's huge for you. Having a guy who's in that slot position, which has thrived for Levy teams in the past, that's massive if he can be that player. We know he's going to be good taking screen passes. We know he's going to be good if you want to get him on a jet sweep. And it will be funny to see if State runs a lot more jet sweeps this year because there was so much. Oklahoma fans called him Jet Levy because he called a ton of jet sweeps to his receivers during his time. And like when he got hired, it was like every OU fan on Twitter was just making a bunch of these jokes about, yeah, have fun seeing a million jet sweeps a game, which, by the way, Oklahoma fans, look what happened to your offense after you lost Jeff Levy. So have fun with that. But he didn't run a ton of jet sweeps at Mississippi State. He ran a few, but they didn't do it a ton. From dime time. Part of that was definitely in part of the O-line being iffy. I agree. It was just some frustrating to see him miss some third and shorts. Could have won his game. New subscriber from Bay St. Louis. Love the content. Thank you so much. Down on the coast. I am on the coast as well.
Thank you.
Representing Gulfport. So shout out to Dime Time. Got a couple coasties down here. I love it. Thanks for being a subscriber. Really appreciate that, man. And look forward to
he kind of hit the nail on the head though too with this comment, and you and I have talked about it the last couple of weeks with, the O-line is iffy, and we had kind of talked at the beginning of the show about the offensive line a little bit. There's a lot of good guys with potential, but as a unit, they got to really step up and put it together to put on. It doesn't have to be like the best in the SEC. It doesn't have to be, but you got to give Shapen some room to be himself out there to where he's not risking his life every single play.
100%. They're going to have to protect him better. That'll be a huge part of it is getting that pass protection. I think how you evolve the run game will help with that. And we're going to talk about the running backs here in just a minute. So we'll be able to hit on that there. Just getting back to talking the receivers again, Anthony Evans, there's that excitement of him being a guy that they can utilize again, kind of as a gadget type player, being able to get in the ball on screens, on little, quick passes and letting him go to work. But can he be that possession receiver that Kevin Coleman was? That was kind of the big thing. I think, okay, we see his ability to get downfield based on a highlight on Twitter, which how much stock do you take in that? I don't know. But they think he's a guy who's got the ability to get downfield. We see what he can do as a guy in the short part of the field. Can he handle that Kevin Coleman role of being a consistent, hey, it's 3rd and 7. We have to convert here. Who's going to get open? Who's going to find the open space? Who's going to catch the football? That's going to be the question for him. You add in Brennan Thompson, who there's a ton of excitement around. And, he was just listed on Bruce Feldman's freaks list because of the speed that he has. And he might be one of the fastest players in college football. Absolutely blazing speed, ability to win downfield. Can he be more than that? Because at Oklahoma, he was a deep threat. Like, that was kind of it. Can he be more than just a big vertical threat down the field? Dime time coming in. Hell yeah, Coast Love. Don't mean to interrupt the wide receiver conversation, but if y'all were to come up with Starkville for one game, what game would y'all pick? Ooh. Trying to think.
Let me double check that. What are the – let's see.
Well, I know I'm coming at it from perspective of the Tennessee game. That would be my answer. Tennessee game for sure. I think that's going to be a really fun atmosphere for State early in the season. That's a big opportunity. I mean, I guess the Egg Bowl is always an easy answer. Frankly, from a weather standpoint, the Egg Bowl would be my answer because I hate the heat. I want it to be cool outside, preferably cold outside. So Black Friday, I'll take that. But from a game standpoint, I think that Tennessee game is going to be really exciting. But yeah, thanks.
That's a good question too. There's a couple good games to choose from.
High profile
You mentioned the Tennessee.
This year.
What's that?
High profile opponents coming to Starkville this year. You have 4 playoff
Tennessee, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss, Arizona State. I'd love to check out the Egg Bowl. Like, I think I'm a little bit biased because of how much I value rivals. But if I had to pick outside of that, like, I don't know, Georgia or Texas, just to see that atmosphere with those fan bases getting together, and then it'd be cool to maybe if I'm on the sidelines or something, and just kind of that those are the games you want to see State compete in.
You certainly. My concern there is I don't know how much State's going to be able to compete, so that's kind of why I wouldn't.
Yeah. I agree with you. I'm just saying, like, do something. Like, can they do anything against those teams?
Right. Back to Brennan Thompson. Like, again, can he be someone who is more than just a vertical threat down the field? That's kind of the big thing that you're asking. And to be fair, outside receivers in this offense kind of it's either win vertical or run a comeback. That's kind of what they do play-by-play basis. But you want to see it from him. Aiden Williams, another guy on the outside. All the excitement in the world based on what he did in practices through 2 seasons in Oxford, what he did in spring practices for Mississippi State this year. All of the practice talent and tape is there that show a guy who can be a really exciting player. He has not done anything on the field. Now, he was in a loaded receiver room at Ole Miss. But for what it's worth, a guy who came in the same year as him, Caden Lee, got on the field for Ole Miss plenty last year and is going to be one of their top receivers this season. Now, they play different spots. Caden Lee is a slot. Aiden Williams is an outside receiver. So, that kind of plays a little bit of a role there. But still, Levy is willing to put young guys not Levy. Kiffin was willing to put a young guy on the field. So it's not just a product of having good receivers in the room already. Does the change of scenery lead to a breakout season for Aiden Williams? If he does, the talent is there. The guy can be a big-time player for sure. Other transfers, I don't know how much you're going to get from guys like Jerron Glover. We really have not heard much about Cam Thompson at all outside of being a kick returner. Marcus Allen's interesting, and it sounds like that's a guy who could factor in a little bit more. There are a couple returners, though, that on the returnees, not returners, but returnees on the team that are interesting. Jordan Mosley, last year was State's second leading receiver in terms of yards, 405 yards, caught 3 touchdowns. I thought he kind of had an underrated good season a year ago. So, what type of role can he play this season? Can he expand upon that and be an even bigger part of the offense? Ricky Johnson, as a redshirt freshman in the slot, is someone there was a ton of excitement around during the spring, and he had a very good spring. Can he put that on the field? The players are there. They have guys that they can have success with. It's just finding out if any one of those guys can really expand their role. Now, if at the least you have guys who can all play a role and you put all those guys in the field together, you got something to work with there. And before we end here, we do have to talk about the tight end room. I think Seydou Traore at tight end is going to be due for a really big year. I like what he offers for State as a receiving threat over the middle of the field. Jeff Levy has utilized his tight ends in the passing game before. Kenny Yeboah at Ole Miss was one of those guys. Braden Willis at OU is the one I look at with Traore and think some of the stuff Levy did with Braden Willis you can do with Traore. And he did some of it a year ago, but that was a guy that he kind of looked for matchups with. And he wasn't just a check down option, it wasn't just a guy we're throwing to the flats, which you get a lot of the time with the tight end. He made Braden Willis a priority target within that offense. I think you can do the same thing with Seydou Traore. I think his receiving ability at the tight end position, which frankly, he's a big receiver. He is not a true tight end. He's very much a big receiver. But I think he gives you a guy that can be a really, really big pass catcher for you. And, he was second on the team in receptions a year ago. I think Shapen is going to be able to – we talk about that short to intermediate passing game. That was a struggle for Michael Van Buren a year ago. Shapen can thrive there, and I think that really benefits a guy in Seydou Traore. And this whole discussion of, is there a guy who can kind of be that go-to target that you can reliably say, get him the foot? He's going to get open on third down, catch the ball, convert. It might be Traore. And, look, they added a couple more guys in the room. Max Reese from Eastern Michigan, who's another good receiving threat. Sam West from Indiana sounds like he's showing some flashes here in camp since getting in. We'll see what happens with Cameron Ball, who at 6'7", 250 fits the mold of a big-time, kind of a bruiser, which they need better blocking from the tight end position. Kind of getting into the run game. You need guys who can add more there because Traore is not a big-time blocker. They've got some interesting pieces there in that tight end room, but even from purely from a receiving standpoint, I think they've got a guy who can really thrive.